Started. So first and foremost, can you tell me your name and your position? And also spell your name for me too.
Sure. So my name is Stephanie Stanley, Stephanie. Last name Stanley, Stanley, and I use she, her pronouns. And I am a mental health therapist at the Center for Survivors at MSU.
All right, perfect. So tell me about this crisis line. Is this something that's already been established? Is this something new? Like what's so new and fresh about this?
So it is really exciting. So I want to kind of differentiate. We have two different services that we offer both for crisis. One is a 24/7 hotline. So that's a phone call service that's available 24/7 every day of the year. The other service that we offer is the crisis chat. That is also available every single day, but from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And so that's the text service. Both services are completely free. Both services are completely anonymous. Both services are sort of operated primarily by our really incredible team of volunteers who make a huge commitment. They go through a ton of training because they're really passionate about supporting survivors. And they are both have been established for quite a while now. The crisis chat is not brand new. It's been around for a couple of years. I couldn't give you the month and year it was that first begun, but it is really unique. It was sort of a pilot program. My understanding is it is the first in the country to exist specifically related to a campus program.
Okay. All right, perfect. So talk to me about the training that these volunteers are going through. Because, if I'm texting someone, I'm probably like, are they my age group? Or like, who are these people? Are they professionals? Like, how do they establish that trust with the person?
Yeah, so our volunteers come from a variety of backgrounds. Many of them are current MSU students, but some of our volunteers are community members. We have had volunteers at different times. So I don't supervise the volunteers directly, so I can't tell you like today this percentage is this, right? But we have had times, right, where some of our volunteers are therapists in the community who are also doing this as a volunteer role. And just the basic training to be volunteers. All of our volunteers go through an interview process first and have to be accepted into the program. They also go through 30 plus hours of initial training about relationship violence, sexual assault, the impact trauma has on people in general. They have access to resources and catalogs of information, so they know what kind of local resources are to give referrals. Their training involves not just didactic, like listening to a lecture, but like role playing and kind of like acting out what you would do in a call. They also have a weekly meeting, and those meetings often include training, right? So I provided a training last week at the meeting for our SASE volunteers about interpersonal neurobiology, which sounds more complicated than it is, but essentially this idea of how does the way that you show up with people impact them, right? And so looking at the tone you use, the energy you bring to a room, how can you help someone in crisis regulate a little bit? So not only do they do that initial 30 hours of training, 30 plus hours of training, but they do ongoing training them throughout the time that they volunteer with us. They also have access to office hours. So Catherine Neighbor, our training coordinator, our SASE coordinator, who is just incredible. So she supervises all the volunteers. She offers office hours every week. And so she meets with volunteers who maybe are struggling to kind of process something they heard on a call or a chat, or want feedback about this is how I responded. Was this the best way? And want to grow in that way. And then beyond that, we also always have a staff member on backup. And so what that looks like is the volunteer has somebody who's on call for them that they can reach out to, they can get in the moment feedback. And so that might mean, again, after the call, calling for support, or it might mean, sometimes I'll get a text during a call saying like, I'm on a call right now. This is what I'm thinking. Is this the best way to proceed, right? So our volunteers, it's extraordinary how much training and support they get. And it really does come down to like, they're doing such important work and we want to make sure they're supported in that work.
All right, perfect. So talk to me, why do you feel as though this chat, let's talk about the chat specifically.
Okay.
Why do you think this is so important to have?
Oh my goodness. Um, so I think a couple of reasons. One of them is, and this is maybe going to age me a little bit, but I think like the current population of students, many of them are just more comfortable with that format than speaking on the phone. I think there are people who are going to reach out more readily, who are going to be more willing to reach out and ask for help. Um, Similarly to that, to some folks, it does feel a little more anonymous. Um, Both are anonymous, right? I can't identify someone who calls by their voice, but for some people, it feels a little more anonymous to chat. Another really important piece of that is accessibility. For people who are deaf or hard of hearing, they can still access the chat where they may not have the resources or accessibility to make a phone call, especially if they're in a domestic violence or relationship violence situation. So I think the chat just increases our accessibility. There are people who wouldn't or couldn't make a phone call and now have the chat option.
All right, perfect. And so as a therapist, how do you think this will help survivors or just people who are in need of help at the moment?
Absolutely. So we help in a few different ways. One of the primary ways that our hotline and chat support folks in the community who contact us is by connecting them with local resources. People contact us from all across the country. It is not only local people contacting the hotline and chat. And so when someone reaches out and says, I've had this experience or I'm having this experience and I don't know what to do, one of the best things we can do is say, if you want to share your geographical location, we don't need your address, right? But if you want to share your general location, we can give you information to what exists locally so you can get support. The other piece is, accessing services for relationship violence, for sexual assault is extraordinarily challenging and scary for people. Coming to our office and saying, I need therapy related to sexual assault is a huge leap in vulnerability. And that's hard for people. And so what this does is it gives them the opportunity to kind of dip a toe, get a little bit of a feel of what would it be like to work with this program, what would it feel like to get services. They can get information, again, anonymously about how do I get therapy, how do I get advocacy, what if I wanted to report to the police, what would that process be like without risking their own anonymity, right? Without fear that there's going to be some sort of repercussion. And we have absolutely had people where they end up seeking out long-term intensive therapy, but their first step was a hotline and chat. And that is just so gratifying to see. And it makes me so passionate about this service being available to everybody out there, because if there's one survivor who gets services who wouldn't have it otherwise, then that's a huge impact on our community.
Oh, sorry, I'm just going through the article pick to make sure I'm getting all my questions answered.
Okay.
Okay. And so are there specific requirements for these volunteers to participate, or are you not really sure about that part?
Can you tell me more what you mean by requirements?
Like, do they have to be maybe in school for a certain amount of time? Do they have to be a student? Do they have to have some type of formal background in mental health or anything like that? Like, what requirements in that terms?
Yep. So initially, they don't have to have, there aren't real specific criteria of you have to have a certain education background or you have to be a student, like we said. There are community members who volunteer. Our volunteers do all consent to a background check. So we verify that they, both with criminal history and then also with central registry, so that's Child Protective Services history, verify that they're not someone who's been found to be a perpetrator, right? Our primary goal is to keep survivors safe. But outside of that, then the requirements are, can they commit to the training? Can they commit to be here and volunteer on a consistent basis? Can they commit to the weekly Monday meetings? And then there is a level, again, of supervision. Catherine oversees all of our volunteers, and so she gets feedback from kind of their involvement with survivors. She gets feedback from the backup staff. So if there ever were a concern, that is something she would address. But really, anyone in the community who's interested in volunteering, I would encourage them, like, contact the program, contact Catherine, and she can give you more information about requirements. Training happens multiple times a year, and so there's always an upcoming training happening, and she, I'm sure, would be happy to share information about that.
All right, perfect. And I don't know if you've gotten any feedback from any of these volunteers to kind of just get an idea of what it's like helping these different individuals out.
I don't want to, I want to be cautious about speaking on behalf of somebody else, but I think what I've observed, right, is that volunteering is challenging and it's gratifying. We have people who volunteer with us for years, and I don't think they would be continuing to do it if it wasn't gratifying, right? It is a big commitment, and it's challenging. Sometimes you're hearing people's stories that sometimes the potential of secondary trauma exists. And also we hear consistently that when you get to know that you've made a difference in somebody's life, that you've connected them with something they need, that you know, sometimes you might be the first person to tell someone, I believe you. And that can change somebody's life. And so when that's been your experience, and then you do have access to Catherine and to the backup for the hotline or the chat, that makes it sustainable even in the hard moments.
All right, perfect. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that I didn't ask?
I don't think so.
I know, but I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know why. I don't want to like get off the call and I'm like, wait, I should have asked this question. I really think we touched on everything. We touched on the fact that it's 24 hours. And then what it is, do you know like the specific phone number that people can text to use this service?
Yes, it is 517
Mhm.
372
Mhm.
6666.
Okay, all right, perfect. So if they're ever in need or have any questions in regarding to their situation, this can help. And has this changed lives or helped people so far?
That feels like a pretty bold statement, but I'm willing to say, like, yes, it has helped people. Changed lives feels, again, like that's bold, but I honestly do think so. You know, I've talked with people who, again, were afraid to access therapy, and then this was their channel to get there. And so as a therapist, I would hope that that means that has changed their life.
And also as a therapist, you can just kind of speak on the mental health, I guess, phase of going through something and being able to open up and talk about it, if you don't mind touching on that for maybe these people who are using these services. We're not speaking for on behalf of them exactly, but just in general from as an expert.
Expert feels strong, but yes, I think I can say definitely, right, like having experienced sexual assault or relationship violence is something that does impact you, and it for many people impacts your feeling of safety and your feeling of trust, right? And so again, I think reaching out, asking for support, asking for help is something that can be really scary. Whether it's right or not, there is a lot of stigma in our society. A lot of folks experience victim blaming. And so we've seen examples, right, on the news, and had these moments. A lot of survivors have moments of going like, well, I don't know if I want to tell anybody what happened because look at how this person got treated when they did. And so I think, again, being able to sort of dip their toe in the water, so to speak, with an anonymous service and kind of get that experience of, I'm going to tell somebody what happened and I'm going to see how they respond without risking my name's not associated with it, my picture's not associated with it, and having the experience of being believed, being supported, being offered resources, being offered empathy, I think is just really crucial for so many people. And for a lot of them, that then leads to feeling more comfortable and more ready and more safe to reach out and say, I need, you know, individualized, personal, long-term treatment that obviously is no longer anonymous, but is still confidential.
All right, perfect. And is there any way that you guys are encouraging or getting the word out about this chat?
It is advertised definitely on our website. Our program runs a couple different social media platforms. And so like on our Facebook, on our Instagram, there are pretty frequent posts reminding folks. Certainly we are telling our current clients about it. It also, in theory, it should come up in a Google search. And so that's part of the idea, right? Is that folks who are in need might do a Google search for how do I get help? This is what happened. And we really hope we're one of the first pages that comes up. Um, and I want to mention briefly too that we also have we just had the first anniversary of our sexual assault healthcare program.
Yes, I've been trying to do a story about that for a while, and she could not connect me with anybody.
Okay, so I am not the best person to talk
Okay.
about that because I don't work directly within the program and we are separate, but our volunteers support that program as well. And we have a whole team of volunteers that can come out and advocate for patients when they come in for an exam. And so that's also a part of the volunteering opportunity for folks if they're interested.
Okay, all right, perfect. Those are all my questions that I have for today. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I don't think so.
All right, perfect. So if I have any more follow-up questions, I'll definitely just shoot you an email. And then I think Chris was going to try to put me in contact with an actual volunteer. So hopefully I can get that soon.
Awesome. That would be great.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.